Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on our global economy. We're going to dig into why you see mountains of brand new shipping containers just left to rust in American ports, and why the world's biggest oil producer still has to import oil from other countries. Believe me, what you see on the surface is just the beginning of a much, much more complex story.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a puzzle that sounds, well, totally impossible. Imagine a farmer who grows more food than anyone else on his own land, but when he gets hungry, he has to go ask someone else for permission to eat. Right? It just doesn't add up.
And it's not just that. There's this other huge mystery playing out in our ports. Millions of these giant metal boxes show up, packed with goods, but a ton of them never actually make the trip back. It's a clue that points to this massive, hidden imbalance in the way the world trades. So let's dive into it.
All right, first up, let's follow the journey of those thousands of metal boxes. I mean, these things carry literally everything. The clothes you're wearing, the phone you might be holding in your hand right now, it was probably in one of these.
This is pretty mind-blowing. But something like 90% of our civilization's economy relies on ships crossing the ocean inside these containers. At any given moment, you've got thousands of these massive vessels out on the high seas. They are quite literally the backbone of our modern world.
So, where does this all start? Well, it really kicks off with China's dominant role as, the world's factory. The sheer volume of stuff they export, compared to what they import, creates this huge logistical headache once all those goods get to where they're going.
And this is where you can really see that imbalance in action. For every 10 containers that land in the US from China, only about 4 of them get packed with American goods and sent back. So, what in the world happens to the other 6? Well, it really just boils down to simple economics. Look at the math. It costs about $3 grand to ship an empty container all the way back to China. And that's not just the cost. It's taking up valuable real estate on a ship that could be used for a full, profitable container. But a company in China can just build a brand new one for only about $2,000. It's a no-brainer, financially speaking.
And so what you get is this bizarre graveyard of shipping containers. They become these silent witnesses to this huge trade imbalance, piling up in American ports and cities, just slowly rusting away. Sure, some get repurposed in really creative ways, but a massive number of them just sit there, completely unused.
Okay, let's shift gears from the open ocean to what's deep underground. We're going to uncover the secrets of American oil.
Yeah, you heard that right. It's a total paradox. The world's biggest oil producer is also a major importer of oil. How is that even possible? Well, it turns out there are 2 big reasons behind it.
So the first reason is all about chemistry. There's a fundamental mismatch between the kind of oil that's actually coming out of the ground in the US and what the country's machinery is built to handle. It's kind of like trying to run a diesel engine on gasoline. You've got the wrong kind of fuel.
See, most of the oil coming out of the ground in the US is what they call light crude. It's lighter, it's thinner. But here's the catch. The country's refineries, they were built decades ago to process heavy crude. That's the thicker, gooier stuff they used to get from places like Mexico and Venezuela. So America ends up exporting its own light crude at a higher price and then importing the heavy crude its refineries actually need at a lower price.
And we're talking about a massive problem here. To upgrade all of those old refineries so they can handle the oil that's produced domestically, well, you're looking at a bill of over $200 billion. That's not something you can just do with the flip of a switch. Okay, so the second reason has nothing to do with the oil itself. It's a plumbing problem, basically. Even if the oil was the perfect type, the US just doesn't have enough pipes to get it from point A, where the oil fields are, to point B, where the refineries are.
So you've got this crazy situation where Texas is sitting on this sea of oil, but there isn't a good way to pipe it over to the refineries on the East Coast. And then you have a huge state like California that, because of the same issue, has to import about 70% of its fuel. The oil is right there, under the ground, but it's stuck.
So we've seen how physical things, like ships and pipelines, shape our economy. But there's this whole other invisible layer, right? A complex web of international laws and sanctions. And wherever there are rules, there are people looking for a way around them. Which brings us to this absolutely wild story of international smuggling.
Now, this should be totally impossible. For years, heavy US sanctions have forbidden selling anything to Iran, especially something as advanced as a passenger jet. And yet, it happened. So, how?
This whole thing played out like something straight out of a spy movie. First, they used these fake shell companies that only exist on paper, to get the planes out of U.S. jurisdiction. Then they filed bogus flight plans for maintenance in another country. And then, get this, once the planes were over Afghanistan, the pilots just switched off their transponders, creating ghost flights that vanished from radar before secretly landing in Iran.
So I guess the big takeaway here is that our global economy is so much more complicated and frankly uncertain than it looks on the surface. When you see a headline about rising prices or shortages, just remember there's often this incredibly intricate dance of ships, laws, and politics happening behind the scenes.
And it really makes you wonder, right? What other hidden systems and secret maneuvers are out there, pulling the strings and affecting our lives every single day?